Good morning, dear friends, near and far. So happy that we have this opportunity to be together today. So happy that I get to introduce Sister True Vow, who is a friend and dear to me. I'm so inspired by Sister True Vow's practice, being both abbess, I don't know, maybe, are you still abbess? At Blue Cliff, and her dedication, your dedication, Sister True Vow, to the Earthholder community. We really longed for monastic presence, and you have, at least in my opinion, exceeded our wildest dreams. So happy to have you as co-chair of the Caretaking Council. So Sister Thệ Nghiêm is a second-generation Vietnamese-American who grew up in Pennsylvania. She ordained in 1999 and currently resides and practices at White Crane Hamlet of Blue Cliff Monastery, New York. As a practitioner in the Plum Village Tradition, she received Dharma Lamp Transmission from Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh in 2006. She has a deep interest in exploring the connections between Buddhist and Western psychology to help people heal and touch our fullest potential. And today, Sister Thệ Nghiêm is going to talk about equanimity and balance, cultivating resilience. So with that, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Nomi. Dear friends, thank you for joining us for our bi-weekly Earthholder Sangha. Good to see everyone. We would like to begin with a grounding guided meditation that Jess is will be kindly offering us. So we'll be sitting for 15 minutes. The first 10 minutes will be guided. A near and close favorite of ours is the Pebble Meditation, just so we can touch nature in ourselves. And the last 5 minutes will be in silence, and then we'll begin the sharing after that. Thank you. And you might like to just keep your audio on so that you can be less distracted. You're welcome to turn off your video and just remain connected with your audio for the guided meditation. Thank you. Thank you, Jess.
Dear friends, dear Thai, dear Sangha, this is Jess bowing in. I'll invite you to find a comfortable sitting position. I'll invite you to notice your feet on the ground, on your cushion. And take a moment to relax your face, your jaw, releasing any tension in your shoulders. You may wish to close your eyes if that feels comfortable, or gently rest your gaze on a point in front of you. You can begin to notice your breath coming in, going out. And if you find yourself drifting away from your breath during this practice, just notice where your attention has landed and gently bring it back to the anchor of your breath. And after 3 sounds of the bell, I'll guide you through our Pebble meditation. Breathing in, I see myself as a flower. Breathing out, I feel fresh. In, flower, out, fresh. Breathing in, I see myself as a mountain. Breathing out, I feel solid. In, mountain, out, solid. Breathing in, I see myself as still water. Breathing out, I reflect all that is. Still water, reflecting. Breathing in, I see myself as space. Breathing out, I feel free. Space, free. Please enjoy 5 minutes of silent sitting. Dear friends, you may gently open your eyes, move your body in whatever way is feeling supportive for you in this moment. And I'll pass it back to Sister True Vow. Just bowing out.
Thank you, Jess. Dear Sangha, so again, good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. Wonderful. So every 2 weeks we have a chance to come together as earth holders, as practitioners, as fellow human beings to reflect together on our journey. Today we're focusing on just watering some seeds of awareness about our resilience. One lasting image that our teacher shared with us about Sangha is a forest, a healthy forest of trees. You can imagine oak trees standing side by side. We are individuals, but we are also a collective entity, a whole forest breathing together. And each person in their capacities of awareness, of their aspirations and their actions, serves to breathe as an individual and as a collective for the whole forest, and not just the forest, but for the whole earth. So this image is very empowering for me, because I imagine a whole ecosystem working together, and the trees that we are very solid and connected underneath the ground. So I think there's a reason that our teachers share this image of a strong forest for Sangha, and not an image of noodles, because there's a collective strength in this imagery. So I'd like to invite you to also place yourself in this landscape as a tree. And when we talk about resilience, we're talking about our oak tree nature, not our noodly nature. Of course, we all have times when we are not solid like a mountain, or solid like an oak tree. And that's perfectly normal. That's perfectly human to be changing with the conditions of impermanence. But our direction is always in the direction of more stability, solidity, clarity, and in the work of earth holding, more resilience. So we're exploring that today. In a few minutes, I would like to share a video of an event. You may have seen it back in 1989, when the uprisings in China were occurring, and the crackdown at Tiananmen Square. There's a very famous image of a lone gentleman. They call him now the Tank Man. A lone gentleman who, well, I won't explain it. I'll just allow the video to speak for itself. But that is a backdrop that I'd like to invite us to reflect on some aspects of resilience as it relates to our cultivation as earth holders. Because we know in the time now and in the time ahead, we will be called upon to manifest our resilience in the face of many challenges. So as we watch the video, I'd like to ask you to reflect on the aspects of discomfort from the point of view of the Tank Man. What do we see? How is he moving through what our perceptions are of his great discomfort in placing himself in a situation like that? Inertia. What kind of inertia is there that we see in the systemic representation of the tanks bearing down on this one lone gentleman? What kind of inertia might this man might have grappled with in order to place himself out of a place of disconnect into a place of extreme engagement with the quality of presence that he had. And lastly, what aspects of dissonance, what clashes in energies do we see playing out in this very short encounter? So after the video, I'd like to ask for your reflections on a few questions as we look together at this example of resilience as it manifests in the larger collective sphere. And then we're going to take a look at how it relates to us in our daily life as oak trees in our more smaller spheres of engagement. Okay? So again, this took place in 1989, and there had been protests that were going on, starting with the students and the workers, and it grew and it started to swell. And by the time that the video that we're about to see happened, there were over 1 million people involved in the protests. There were hunger strikes that were starting to happen out in the streets, right in Tiananmen Square. Can everyone see the clip, the video? Okay. I'd just like to invite one sound of the bell to allow us to let that image and the sounds permeate our consciousness. I'm very interested to hear from you what that touched in you as it relates to the spirit, the human spirit. So if you'd like to unmute yourself and share, if you care to share it to the larger group, what were some of the things that were touched in you? Maybe one or two things, so we can give space for a number of sharings. What was touched in you with regard to resilience and the human spirit? Feel free to just unmute yourself and introduce, because our group is large. We cannot see everyone.
I will say something, Thaddeus bowing in. I have been in China. That was my place to be for my work for many years. So I felt what that gentleman did right in my heart. So much courage and so much belief that he could change the course of the tanks and that he could change the course of his country. So I love that guy. So, and if only we could feel the same way as he has shown us how we can be resilient and how we can be courageous like an oak tree. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you so much, Thaddeus.
Maria Lúcia bowing in, dear Thai, dear Sangha. This is such a powerful image. And I see this young man as so brave. This is the whole idea of being an oak tree and resisting violence with peace. And it gives me hope if we have more people like that, so brave, so strong at the same time, and so peaceful. Maria Lúcia bowing out. Thank you.
Let's have Padma share next, and then Peter, if there's time.
Padma sharing in from the unceded land of the Cherokee. I was arrested last week for stopping business as usual at a Chase Bank with a group of other people who were fighting pipelines. And we had done an elders walk. And when I watched that video just now, I felt the same feelings of the urgency of the moment to stand up now and do whatever, no matter what the consequences, to make a difference, to stop this, the destruction. I mean, 1989, it was the destruction of this country. Right now, it's the destruction of our planet. Padma bowing out.
Peter, would you care to share?
I would like to hear more about how the video is about resilience. Because what I saw was a lone person behaving extremely very bravely. The photograph to me is iconic. It's all about an individual standing up for what's right, what's just, but but I couldn't help but notice how it was just one individual. And you could hear the voices in the background, so you knew there were many, many more people there. And I also heard gunfire. And we know that people lost their lives in this incident, yet what we remember is this lone figure. And I think the notion of the rugged individual who is going to make change in the world is incomplete. Change occurs because individuals work collectively together to make sure that that happens. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about what this video clip meant in terms of resilience and in terms of how we go beyond just what one individual can do in the world, but what we can do collectively.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Thaddeus. Thank you, Padma. Thank you, Lucia, for your sharings. One of the first things that struck me from the image was the whole line of tanks and the stark contrast with the one lone man, as Peter mentioned. So this stark contrast helps us to see more clearly maybe ourselves when we place ourselves in a situation like that. From what you shared, let me just kind of harvest the things that you touched upon so that we can have a collective summary of that. From our friends sharing, what I heard was courage, right? A strong conviction and belief that what one's actions, our actions, can have an effect for the better. A clear prioritizing to act, knowing the urgency of the situation, and despite the danger that it placed him in. And that energy of resistance with peace and nonviolence. And then in my last sharing, that contrast between a systemic, mechanical approach that is represented by the tanks and the facelessness of those tanks in the military, and the very human, engaged way of that man. So reflecting on this, what does resilience have to do with this image, and what does resilience have to do with our everyday? It's a good starting point for us. Our energy of stability to face the challenges that are in front of us, they are grounded. They have to be grounded from somewhere. Right? So resilience is a healthy relationship with challenges and difficulties. Normally, when we don't have a healthy relationship with our suffering or the suffering outside, we default into fight or flight or freeze. Right? And this is a very natural, very primal way of relating to difficulties. We turn away, we run, we fight in sense of fear or desperation, or we freeze, we become inert, we don't know what to do, we're overwhelmed. So resilience is not just facing challenges and being able to survive, but being able to take in those challenges, to work with them and to transform them in the way that we saw. So yes, that gentleman was one, but he represents the spirit that we all have, that potential, that spirit of facing a great obstacle, a great challenge. In our time, earth holding, there are so many obstacles that we see. The system is so big. we might feel overwhelmed, we might feel frozen, we might feel alone. We might want to just duck our heads and just ignore everything. All of these mechanisms of escape from the difficulty are examples of our lack of resilience as individuals and as a collective. So when we have a resilience, it means we have a manifestation of something that's grounded in us from our practice. Resilience doesn't come from nowhere. Right? It has to have a grounding, and as practitioners, we're very lucky to have teachings that continually point us in the direction of equanimity. So resilience is a manifestation of our practice of equanimity, also our practice of loving kindness, but we're going to focus on equanimity right now. What has this got to do with our practice in our daily life? The great equanimity, the capacity for great resilience on a systemic level has to have its roots in our daily practice of equanimity in the everyday, mundane activities of our life. And that goes directly to the way that we interact with one another as family members, as community members, the way we interact with our habits, specifically our habits of consumption. Because consumption, the way we choose to put our energy into consuming with our senses or using our time, has a direct relationship with our capacity or not to be equanimous. So resilience is embedded in our practice of equanimity, and equanimity practice is embedded in our relationship, our working relationship with the three poisons of aversion, attachment, and ignorance. And this is why it's so helpful, so beneficial to be in community, to be in a practice environment that allows us to see our daily mundane activities of interacting with one another in our speech, in our way of listening, in our way of eating, in our way of watching the news in the light of practice. Because in our daily life is where our habit energies of aversion or attachment manifest. And our practice of equanimity, which is to look, maybe to let us look a little bit about equanimity. Equanimity is an even-mindedness. Our teacher has translated that as a capacity of letting go, or a capacity to be inclusive. It means that we are not caught by anything, whether it's things that are pleasant or things that are unpleasant. In our daily life, maybe we don't have these great mountains of challenge like as represented in the video. But for sure, every day there are things that are pleasant or unpleasant that come through our experiences. And a practice framework to know that what I'm touching in this moment is pleasant, and how am I practicing with that pleasant feeling, that pleasant conversation, that pleasant habit, that pleasant pastime. Or to have a practice framework when I'm touching discomfort, an uncomfortable conversation with someone. A task that's out there that I know I actually should be spending more time and energy on instead of turning away from it or distracting myself with other things, more maybe less meaningful things or more frivolous things. How we engage with the practice of equanimity will shore up our reservoir, our reserve so that in situations that calls on us in a more collective space, we will be more prepared, more ready, and more capable to meet challenges in the spirit of embracing and transforming rather than running or fighting. Okay, so today we have a chance to just reflect a little bit more deeply on our daily practices of equanimity as it relates to our habit energies. And especially as earth holders, we're very aware that consumption plays a big part, our habits of consumption plays a big part in the inequities in the United States as well as globally. So consumption is actually a very big deal. Our relationship with our way of consuming what we feel comfortable with in terms of the basic, land, water, and then going into issues of how we spend our time, how we offer our time, what our scope of is in sharing. All relate to earth holding. So in order for us to shore up our capacity for resilience, we need to be concrete with our practice of equanimity. And in order for us to be concrete with our practice of equanimity, we need to have a clearer focus on what's pushing and pulling us. Energies. Our habit energies are something that either we are aware of and act on, or we are unaware of and yet we still act on. So there are many levels of resilience building. First of all, from the very basic level of practicing mindfulness, to first become aware in this very moment when I'm sitting on the cushion, I have a desire to get up. I have an impatience coming up in me. And when I have impatience, my first reaction is to get up and do something else. So that from the very basic level, we start to become aware and identify what that habit energy is. On another level, as we become more and more aware of our various habits of aversion and attraction and acting on those aversions and attractions, then we put our energy into choosing a better action instead, what I like to call what is the most beneficial action in the moment. And then another level above that is sustaining that over time, building a new habit energy. And this goes directly to resilience. Resilience is a capacity to transform difficulties over a span of time, right? Things don't just change overnight. Our friend Peter was mentioning the collective versus the individual engagement. In order for a collective engagement to occur, enough individuals have to begin to show up and continue to show up in spaces like this, in spaces like our Earth Holder Sangha, to continue to move through the inertia of inaction in order for us to bring our energies, our voices, our actions together as a collective. So this aspect of perseverance, building a new habit energy of showing up for ourselves beyond our pushes and pulls of aversion and attraction. And as we build this habit, this new habit of being in the middle, practicing to be equanimous with the negativity that we're touching in ourselves or outside, or being pulled by the shiny objects outside, or the easy comforts inside, the things that stroke our ego on the inside, and returning to that middle point, not pushing away those things, but just seeing clearly what's happening. This allows us to work on that last and very, very potent poison right within ourselves of ignorance. The ignorance of lack of awareness, the ignorance of indifference of the ongoing issues that affect us all. The ignorance of interbeing. So that man, he was that tank man, his strength came in his conviction that he could connect with the humanity, the shared humanity, with those people ensconced in that whole line of tanks. Now, what does that mean for us as earth holders? When we place ourselves in uncomfortable situations and conversations, in what Lucia said, it's in a place of resistance, but with nonviolence and peace, from a conviction, from an understanding, from an insight that we have a shared humanity. That is interbeing right there. And that we have a vested, shared interest in transforming this great gridlock, this great difficulty that our earth is facing. And we have that from a place of practice. So equanimity allows us to not be distracted by our aversions and attachments, but to keep on keeping on, to keep looking into the issues before us so that we can pierce into that ignorance of indifference, lack of awareness, so we can see the underlying commonalities between ourselves and what is seemingly in opposition to us. You know, that imagery of in the 60s of our friends putting flowers into the gun stocks of the military. That's the very spirit of that, of recognizing beyond what normally pushes us away, to see that common aspect. And this is resilience. This is practicing with seeming dissonance and touching a deeper commonality below that. So in a few moments we will be breaking into Dharma sharing groups to reflect on how resilience, equanimity, and balance is reflecting in our daily lives. And I will put the prompts into the chat, but basically today I'd like to invite us to share about our habit energy of consumption, because it has its roots in all of these areas of attachment, aversion, or equanimity. So to ask you to reflect and share about what are your habits in consumption of fight, flight, right, or freeze, to begin to bring that out from the unawareness to awareness, and what a better choice might be as a practice of equanimity. And secondly, to look at what is the most beneficial action in the moment as an alternative, as a way of changing pegs so that we keep in the middle and not careen from side to side with our aversions and our cravings. So just to summarize, I'm sorry, there's some information coming in. Yeah. Just to summarize, and I'll put them in the chat window for us. We have a thunderstorm going on here. So if I cut out, it's because of the thunder. I'll put that in chat for us for reference later. But to summarize, our resilience, rests on our daily practice of equanimity, and great resilience starts with great equanimity, and great equanimity starts with smaller equanimities in our daily life, with the things that push and pull us. The things that push and pull us manifest in our habit energies. And specifically, we're looking at how we consume so that we can create and maintain space for deeper looking, for perseverance and patience. So one thing that I'd like to invite us to have as a takeaway homework as we continue to practice together in our earth holding efforts is based on our earth holding aspirations, large or small, everything is supportive of this direction of healing for our planet. Based on our aspirations as earth holders, what is your Wimba? What is your more beneficial action in the moment? We may reflect on one of the habits of consumption that we touched upon in the Dharma sharing just now, and take that up as a concentration for the next couple of weeks. For example, if we have a habit of consuming news, and we see that it's not in balance, it waters our seed of aversion in a way that we don't have a productive way, beneficial way of handling that aversion. Instead, it pushes us towards negativity or sense of overwhelm. So we take up that habit energy, place it firmly in front of us, and reflect on how we might like to practice with it for the next couple of weeks. How might we practice equanimity with this habit of running towards the news or running away from something else? And part B of that is, of course, Wimba. Instead of doing that, what is the more beneficial action? For some of us, it might be using our time to rest, as we touched on in our Dharma sharing, using our time to rest. Or it may be focusing on something more beneficial. We have an Earth Holder website full of resources to further our understanding, awareness of current ecological situations, to further our understanding of our interbeing as it relates to our larger community of earth holders, of global citizens, to look into our relationship with race, to engage further concrete actions of earth holding. So please feel free to look at our, I think our Nomi put a link to that, our Earth Holder website. So what is your Wimba? What is your habit energy of consumption? And what is your Wimba is the suggested takeaway for us in the next couple of weeks. And we know that the bigger picture is, as we continue to practice, we have more stability, solidity, and more capacity to be that oak tree together in the face of larger systemic challenges. Thank you for your presence and practice together today. And with that, I'll hand it over to Nomi. Thank you, Nomi.
Thank you, dear friends, for being here together today. I'm so appreciative of these teachings. Couple of brief announcements before we go. I put in the chat if you would like to offer dana. That specifically is the link for offering dana to the Earth Holder community. But you can also navigate to all the other pages that Sister True Vow just mentioned from there as well. This is it, number 3, our online retreat, We'll be opening for registration soon. The dates of the retreat are September 26th through November 7th. And if you haven't participated in this retreat, or even if you have, we would love for you to join us. And in 2 weeks, July 25th, 6 o'clock Eastern Time for 1 hour, we'll have our second monthly online Sangha. And it'll be facilitated by Tree, who is a regional community builder. And I kind of like this. I love hearing everyone's introductions, but I also love us just being with the silence of what we have received today as we complete our time together. I don't know if there's any last words you'd like to offer for sharing of the merit, Sister True Vow, before I will invite 3 bells for us to complete our time together.
Thank you, Nomi. So, thank you for your commitment to come. That's already, I think, an aspect of resilience, because I know everyone has a lot on their plate and we're busy, and that you've made this time commitment to be together, to be still together, to look into all of these shared aspects together is already very nourishing for me. May the merit of our practice together have reverberations out concretely into all of the spheres that we inhabit in our personal, interpersonal, and more systemic level of our presence. And may we touch a resilience concretely in our daily lives. As after we hear the 3 sounds of the bell, if you wouldn't mind just staying on just for a couple minutes so I can share a brief summary through the chat. Thank you very much.